God in the midst of trials. If you go to Genesis chapter 31 and 32, you learn some things about Jacob, the son of Isaac, who was the son of Abraham, that many people probably don't think about, right? How do we look at trials and tribulations in life? And how do we look at divine visitation from God in the midst of our trials? God doesn't always come to you when life is perfectly fine and peachy and you feel like your discernment is at an all-time high. A lot of times he comes to you when you diligently seek him in the midst of hardship. Jacob had waited 14 years for Rachel, right? The first time he was deceived by Laban, which was their father, and he received Leah, and that's not who he wanted. So he worked another 7 years to receive Rachel as his wife, and he worked 6 more years as well to receive the inheritance of livestock that he deserved. So 20 years in all of waiting for what he felt like was his, just for Laban to then still not have favor upon him and decrease his pay 10 times. Imagine that. Imagine giving a person 20 years of your all and they still do not see your worth. Not just a person, but somebody as close as your father-in-law. So many times we deal with the wounds inflicted by family members that we never take the time to process even what's necessary to cope. Jacob found himself fleeing from that situation. Long story short, he ends up reconciling with Laban, not necessarily in a way that made everything perfectly fine, but they created a covenant that allowed them to coexist. Jacob went his own way, Laban went back to where he was. But it wasn't over. Jacob now looks up and he's dealing with the pain of the regret and also the consequences, potentially, of his past. Jacob once deceived his twin brother Esau. And he just got word that Esau is now on his way to him. But he doesn't know what for. But because he had not yet dealt with the condemnation from his past mistakes, he perceived that Esau was on his way to take his life. This was the time that Jacob wrestled with an angel. Everybody wants to talk about how Jacob wrestled with an angel, he wrestled with an angel, but nobody talks about what Jacob was going through when he wrestled with an angel. Jacob was in one of the worst times of his life. He was dealing with the pain and the, honestly, paranoia of the poor decisions he had made towards his loved ones, while the loved ones that he was actively choosing weren't choosing him. That's some confliction, huh? What do you do when God places you in a point in your life where, for one, you're dealing with the consequences of your own decisions, and he's allowing you to deal with resistance? Are you still willing to do what Jacob did, which was wrestle with God? When he wrestled with God, he said, I'm not letting go until you bless me. Are you willing in the midst of your pain to hold on to God until something breaks, until something changes, until something shifts? Because that's the same attitude that got Jacob's name changed to Israel. Israel did not start just as a nation. Israel started with a man who was willing to fight. Your willingness to fight and push through is what will allow for God to change your, not just identity, but your name, what people know you by, what the legacy of your people will fall under. What umbrella can your people hang their hat on being under when it's all said and done? He could have stayed Jacob, which was a name that was rooted in deceit, but he chose to become Israel, and he left with a limp because of it. Because blessings change the way that you walk. But it's the fight that comes from the process of being blessed that will change the way you walk. It's not just the blessing itself. Are you willing to endure the process of what it takes for God to elevate you, even if it means it changes the way that you walk? You tell me. God bless you.